Hey everyone, welcome back to True Love Diaries. I hope you're doing well. Today, we are sharing 5 Reddit love stories about people we almost had and never truly forgot. Some of these might feel a little too real, so sit back, relax, and let's begin.
We met on a train. This past summer, I went on the trip of a lifetime. I flew to Toronto and explored Canada for 2 weeks. I took the train round trip up to Montreal, and I went over to Niagara Falls for the 3rd time. The main reason I flew to Canada was to board the Via Rail train from Toronto to head out to Vancouver. It took us about 100 hours to cross. On the 2nd day of the trip, in the Dome car, I ran across a beautiful blonde woman from Germany. We ended up chatting up there for quite a few hours. We stayed up just talking about everything, about my experiences in Germany a year earlier, and about our mutual solo adventures around the world. Never in my life have I had so much fun getting to know somebody. When you meet the right person, and it clicks, it just gives you such a warm feeling. That first night, we stayed up till 1 in the morning, just talking in the Dome. We had the chance to get off the train to explore the Winnipeg train station, but we both just stayed up in the Dome. I did not want to leave our deep, meaningful conversation, and she didn't either. We ended up chatting many more times and had a few meals together during the rest of the train trip. Our trips were very similar. Mine was Canada and Australia, and hers was Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, and Thailand. Once we got into Vancouver, we all split ways after the train ride was over. We of course connected through WhatsApp. The following day, when I was scheduled to fly to Australia, I got an email from the airline saying that my extra legroom seat was cancelled because they had no record of me purchasing it, but they were going to give me a refund. So I was fuming mad. I went to the airport really early and got a hold of an airport manager for Air Canada. They ended up giving me $15 off a new seat. I wanted to tell them where they could stick it, but I did not want to get kicked off the plane. But this is where fate stepped in again. Once I completed getting my ticket situated for my flight to the land down, I got a message from the beautiful German lady that she was also at the airport waiting for her car rental to explore Canada a few more weeks. We were in separate food courts, so I went and asked for directions to the other one. Once I got there, I looked around everywhere and I couldn't find her, so I shot her a message and told her where I was. A few seconds later, she found me. We ended up chatting for several more hours at the airport before we both split ways for a good on this trip. She went off to her car rental, and I went off to my plane to Brisbane. I shot her a message saying, "Thank you for making my day," because after all that stress of my airline ticket, I was on cloud 9 being able to see her again. She said the same, that it really meant a lot to her to see me again too. Since we only knew each other for a few days, I did not want to rush and go in for a kiss. I asked her if she would be okay if I gave her a hug. This works to my advantage, because I'm gonna step out and go for it when I see her in the spring. So we ended up sharing all of our stories of the rest of our trips after this. I shared everything from Australia. I got to ride a camel. I went to the top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I got to go to the world famous Australia Zoo. I got a ride for trains across the entire continent. I got to go to an opal mine, a gold mine, and I got to see humpback whales just outside of the Sydney Harbour. I did so much in my month in Australia. She sent me everything she did as well. We were encouraging each other to step outside of our comfort zones and take our trips to the fullest. When I was on that whale watching tour, the ocean was really rough and people were screaming. There were people that were throwing up from the motion, sickness, and some of these waves were pretty vicious. I was scared we were going to capsize. She was sharing stories with me about her childhood when her grandfather taught her to swim in the Atlantic Ocean in Spain. I encouraged her when she was in New Zealand that she needs to step outside of her comfort zone and paraglide. At first, she was hesitant, but then she actually did it and had the time of her life. We both did a lot in our journeys. Near the end, we both agreed I could come in April 2025 to reconnect with her in Germany. So I bought an airline ticket and I'm flying out to see her. We don't talk much nowadays, but that's because we're both busy. She just messaged me over Christmas to say Merry Christmas and to finalize some of our plans for my visit. I told her the 2 things I want to do. She gave me a full comprehensive list of what to do during my 10-day visit. And I told her I want her to choose what we do because I want to see Munich and Germany through her eyes. It's like this song, The Long Way, by Brett Eldredge. I want to see where she grew up. I want to see what made her who she is today. This story still feels like a fairy tale. I wasn't even looking when I found her, but I hear that's when it usually happens. I am excited beyond belief to fly out in April, and I can't wait to see where this goes. Maybe in a few years I would move overseas, but gonna take it one step at a time. It just might be the start of something good. I have a stuffed kangaroo and a opal necklace for her that I purchased in the Australian outback. Had to bring a little piece of Australia to give to her.
My unfinished love story. It's strange how memories have a way of resurfacing when you least expect them. Today, as I sat in the same old spot on the school bus, now just a nostalgic passenger instead of the nervous 7th grader I once was, I couldn't help but think of Henry. Henry. The name alone was enough to send a shiver down my spine, even now, years later. I remember the first time I saw him. I was in 7th grade, and he was an 8th grader a year older, and to my young mind, infinitely cooler. I'd heard whispers about him before I even knew his face. Henry, the bad boy with a reputation. He had this aura about him, a swagger that made everyone step aside when he walked by. That day on the bus, he decided to make me his target. I was new to the route, clutching my backpack like a lifeline. As I found a seat near the middle, I felt eyes on me. I glanced up, and there he was, sitting at the back, a smirk playing on his lips. "Hey, new girl," he called out. "Are you lost, or do you always look like that?" There were chuckles from the other kids, but I wasn't one to back down easily. My heart was pounding, but I shot him a glare that I hoped was intimidating. "I'm exactly where I need to be. Maybe you should mind your own business." His smirk faltered, just for a second, and I knew I'd surprised him. From that day on, it became a routine of sorts. Every morning, we'd exchange barbs across the bus aisle. He'd try to ruffle my feathers, and I'd fire back with a quick retort. It was like a strange dance, one that neither of us wanted to stop. In school, things were different. We rarely interacted, and when we did, it was more like passing glances. We were in different classes, and besides the occasional nod in the hallway, we lived in separate worlds. But the bus was our battlefield. I began to notice little things though, like how he'd get irritated if I talked to another guy on the bus, his eyes narrowing as he watched us from his usual seat at the back. I'd pretend not to notice, but inside, I was thrilled. And if he didn't talk to me for some reason, a heaviness would settle in my chest for the rest of the day. It was ridiculous, really. We were kids, just figuring out what all these feelings meant, but it was undeniable that something was brewing between us. One day, as I walked past his classroom, I heard a chorus of voices say, "Look, that's Henry's girl." My face burned, but I couldn't help the smile that crept onto my lips. His girl. The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. And there was the time someone cracked a joke about me, something silly that I don't even remember now. But I do remember Henry, without missing a beat, saying, "Yeah, she's my girlfriend. So watch what you say." The room went silent, and I stared at him, wide-eyed. He didn't look at me, just kept that cool exterior. But I knew then that what we had wasn't just in my head. But just as quickly as it all started, it ended. After the summer break, I got on the bus and waited for Henry to show up, but he never did. Day after day, his seat remained empty, and a knot of worry twisted in my stomach. I asked his classmates where he was, and they told me, almost nonchalantly, that his parents had sent him to boarding school because of his rowdy behavior. Rowdy behavior. It sounded like Henry, but I knew there was more to him than that. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. He was gone, just like that, and I hadn't even had the chance to say goodbye. I didn't have his number, didn't know where he lived. He was just gone. For years, I tried to find him. I searched for him on Facebook, asked around, but it was as if he had vanished into thin air. Maybe he had forgotten about me, moved on with his life, but I never forgot him. He was my first love, the first boy to make my heart race and my mind spin. Even now, I find myself wondering where he is, what he's doing. Sometimes, when I'm alone with my thoughts, I like to think he remembers me too. That maybe somewhere out there he's sitting on a bus, thinking of the girl who stood up to him all those years ago. And that thought, as bittersweet as it is, brings me a strange kind of comfort. But life goes on, and so do we. The years have passed, and though the memories fade, they never completely disappear. Henry will always be a part of me, a reminder of what it felt like to be young and in love for the first time. And maybe that's enough.
One of my teachers in high school was insufferable, and I owe her everything. Mrs. D. Horrid, awful bully of a woman. We had graduation projects, and I had mine almost completed. Then she took over, and she hated it. She forced me to do the whole thing over again, despite the fact that I did everything right. She just didn't like the subject material. What I ended up picking as a last-minute throwaway job, Shadow, turned out to be my dream job. So I applied to major in it in college, and I went to a tiny university with a great program. I needed an apartment, and I found a couple of people looking for a third roommate. One of my roommates introduced me to his friend, C. We dated through the last few years of college. Then after graduation, he found a job in a little truck stop town. I needed a job, but there was nothing nearby for my degree, so I worked lower-level jobs that covered the bills. I got a job at a truck stop where I met B and K, an engaged couple who quickly became my best friends. My marriage to C fell apart. We're still close friends, but didn't mesh as a married couple. B and K had an old Xbox One they weren't using after each getting Series X. They wanted me to play video games with them instead of just sitting home alone on my PlayStation. They got me playing Conan Exiles with their friends, who became my friends. One friend and I clicked immediately, talking about everything, helping each other through horrible breakups and bad online dating matches. We had so much in common and were great friends. Then I realized I had feelings for him. Shortly after, he realized the same about me. I fell in love with one of my closest friends who treats me so well and loves me so much and is so much better of a partner than I could ever dreamed of having. I feel so cared about and so wanted. He puts in so much effort to show me he loves me. I don't even know how to process how much he loves me. After a long road of being hurt over and over, I was so afraid to let myself fall for him. But he can break through any wall I have. He's believed in us so much that it's infectious. And I can't help but no longer care about repeating that pain, because I know it's never going to happen. We'll make it through anything. We're planning on spending the rest of our lives fixing up cars and motorcycles, having adventures, and playing video games. All because a bitchy control freak teacher got me interested in a career. I met a guy in college whose own career took me to a map, where I met some friends who got me gaming with their friends. And that's how I met my forever person. So thanks, Mrs. D, you miserable hag. I owe you everything.
Comfortable. Move over, I said quietly, nudging him. How are you so sure I'm not asleep? Because I know you are. You never sleep. There it is again, this certain vulnerability. Worry? Maybe care, that I sense in my voice whenever I talk to him. It's like my body betrays me every time I promise to act tough. I hear the sheets ruffle softly as he turned to face me. Then why are you not asleep? You're usually out the moment your head hits the pillow. He raised an eyebrow. I looked away, trying not to seem as needy as I actually was. Some stuff on my mind. I trail off. And you think laying in my bed will help? I sigh. Please, don't make this harder for me than it already is. My pride was holding me back from just admitting to it all. To how I'd been struggling to act tough. To how I feel so comfortable with him to the point of weakness. To how I just randomly call him to hang out sometimes just because his presence calms my mind. To how I am nearing the edge of my emotional stability right now, and I am in dire need of his comfort. But no, I couldn't. I simply couldn't. He gives me a thoughtful look, then moves over and opens his blanket up. With an exhausted nod, he invited me to lay down. Without a second thought, I laid next to him and let his presence engulf me. He didn't dare cross the line. His hand only lingered on my shoulder for a moment while he was tucking me in, after which he just crossed both his arms at his chest and closed his eyes. I snuggled up into myself and closed my eyes as well. I focused on the softness of his bed and pillow, the fresh scent coming off of him, the gentle breaths he was taking. As I got deeper into it, I heard his voice quietly ask, "Do you want to talk about it?" My eyes shot open and I looked up at him. His beautiful brown eyes were looking down at me. I don't know. I look away again. If I keep this eye contact, I might crumble. Does me being here, not saying anything, help you at least? He leaned down a little. I just nodded. I hear him sigh. Then there is silence for a bit. I look at him again, and he is still focused on me. I have the urge to look away as usual, but I don't. I keep the contact. What? He asks. In contrast to his previous look of exhaustion. He was now more awake and aware. In that moment, a war started in my head. Should I do it? Should I break down and admit it? Should I tell him? Hundreds of scenarios in my mind, 1,000 things he can say, how that will affect me. But then, my mind goes blank, and I leap. I move my head forward and lean it where his hands crossed on his chest. I don't know what I am doing, R. I say, for the first time in years, allowing my voice to tremble and crack. I am so torn between myself, and it's all out of fear not to lose you. Once I allowed my body to release the tension, there was no going back. Then the thought hit, that's the end. Oh no, what did I do? A hand lands on my head. I feel a soft caress over my hair, and then the barrier of his hands in front of his chest suddenly opened. One of his hands went behind my neck and pulled me in, while the other kept caressing my head. And then, my walls burst as well. The bent of my emotions I had built with so much vigor cracked open in my being. Tears started flowing out of nowhere and my body began shaking. I leaned into him. My hands gripped his shirt. After I calmed down a little, I heard him whisper near my ear, "Why do you always hide this side from me? Are you afraid I'll hurt you if you show it?" His voice was so gentle, so filled with care. No, it was never because of you. I begun, hiding in his chest. I could never allow myself to show this to you because I never believed I earned it, or that you wanted to endure it. Endure it? He repeats with a calm tone. It's burdensome. I've had my fair share of people tell me so, and I eventually saw it myself. The people I loved, they were pushed away by this mess. They would say I exhaust them, that I burden them with my issues. He stayed silent for a moment. I felt a sensation on my head. He had pressed his lips down on it, leaving a soft kiss. He then spoke. Those might have been people that you loved, but they couldn't have loved you. Not nearly as much as you did them. Server's hand pulled me even closer. Because if you love someone, you never let them suffer alone. You never let them feel like a burden to you. And you are not a burden, am not to me. Never. To me. I look up, my face puffed up and wet. I see tears fall from his eyes as well. His forehead comes to lean on mine and he quietly whispers, "I knew." My eyes widen in shock. I knew you had a hard time showing your emotions out of fear. I knew you always cut me off with a snarky comment whenever I tried to pry deeper so you can feel safer. I knew you called me that day around 7 p.m. to come over, not because you needed my help with the draft, but because you were so exhausted and afraid to be alone that my presence was the only thing that calmed you. And lastly, I knew because that night when you got drunk, you whispered in my ear to keep your secret and to never tell anyone how much you love me and how afraid you are of losing me.
Stuffed Coorperate party to a love story. So my dad is the vice president of a really big cooperation, and a few months back I was kind of forced to accompany him to a really fancy party. It was mostly boring, stuffed, and full of old men in suits. As my dad and I continued meeting people, I came across a friend of his, so I was speaking to him when I noticed his drop-dead gorgeous daughter, ill. Keep their names anonymous for now. So she and I started talking. She was the only other person my age, and I didn't mind talking to a girl that pretty. Our conversations eventually grew deeper and we spoke about our interests and passions. She is into marine biology while I'm into human biology anatomy particularly. We eventually got bored of the atmosphere. How long can two late teens enjoy a boring party like that? Outside, the swimming pool and the gardens were beautiful, and I asked her to accompany me on a walk. As we continued speaking, we failed to notice the time. Then voila, it's already 11 p.m. We decide to head back inside. We sat down at one of the tables, began to eat. I don't even remember what I ate. I was too into looking at her like an idiot. Our conversation deepens and we move to more intimate topics like love. I remember she asked me if I believed in love at first sight, to which I responded affirmatively. Well, I told her about my exes who broke my heart many times and that I'm kinda scared to fall in love. I'll share my love story with my exes later. I remember how she said life is a challenge, you know. You should never stop to love. I mean, you never know where these risks take you. Gosh, I started blushing. Anyways, as the night came to an end, we said our goodbyes, exchanged numbers, and left. Over the course of the next few days, we kept texting non-stop. She was from another country, and I got to know that she would be leaving in a few days. My heart dropped so bad. We met at one last office party. This was a slightly more lively environment. We headed out and walked outside. She said, "I missed you a teeny tiny bit." I replied with, "You have no idea how much I missed you. My friends are annoyed at how much I kept telling them about you. Texting you just added to the anticipation." I hug her and say, "I'm gonna miss you when you leave," and she goes, "Hey, chill man, we can be in touch over phone." I nodded. She did end up leaving, but we still maintain long distance, hoping she returns one day.
If stories like this speak to you, consider subscribing or leave a like to support the channel. More real stories are on the way. If you have a story you'd like to share, we'd truly love to hear it. Send us an email. You'll find our address in the description below.